The Aware Project's aim is to balance the public conversation about psychedelics, spread accurate information, and give a new face to psychedelia. We feel that this change will occur through connection and relationship, one individual at a time. We are calling on everyone whose lives have been improved through the mindful use of psychedelics to educate themselves and become ambassadors for the psychedelic experience. Show those around you that people who use psychedelics mindfully cross all social, racial, economic, and political boundaries.
Mr. David GoodKnife. David Warren GoodKnife, Fire Chief, SDN, is a veteran Sundancer, pipe carrier, Peyotist, lead ceremonialist of Assembly of the Divine Healing Sacrament, NAC, Native American Church, and activist. David has close to 3 decades of ceremony on and off the reservation. Apprenticeship with traditional elders, combined learning and teachings that include understandings derived from both Western therapeutic models as well as indigenous spiritual practices, including use of traditional plant medicine. So it is a great honor for us to introduce David GoodKnife and hear his wise words to share with us.
Welcome, saved me a lot of words. The young man convinced me into doing this footage for him, and it'll save me a lot of words. So I'm going to have the young lady hit the play button, if that's okay.
Sorry, my laptop's about to, the battery's gonna, yeah, it's in the Peacock camera bag next to the iPad. Sorry, guys.
It's all right. So I guess what'll be fun, and I can fill this moment up with this, is I'm used to doing ceremony. This is my first public speaking, and so after we play this video, we'll, just to help me out, we're going to sing a song, and I'm going to ask my wife to help me to make that shift so I can utilize both realms. Thank you. You good?
Yeah, it's like a two-pronged.
My daughter's a good clogger. Well, first of all, I want to thank my daughters and my wife, my beautiful bride, and all of you that come out to support. Those that I've sat in the ceremony, those that I've mentored, those that are here with inquiring minds, I welcome you. And we're alive.
My job is to be invisible, to be a hollow bone, to be no different from a rock or a feather or the water. My name is David Warren GoodKnife. I'm a mixed breed. I got involved in the ceremony community to save my ass. I'm now in recovery from addiction 32 years. I was lost in my life. I ended up living in my car with my 2 dogs. That's how bad it got. I was needing something earthbound to guide me. Then I put the prayers out and I found myself rolling up to a sweat lodge. The sweat lodge is a purification and renewal ceremony. You go in the hut, you sweat it out, and you come out transformed. I didn't know what to expect for the first lodge. The old man said, crawl in there, go clockwise, sit down. The heat was familiar. The drums, the songs, the prayers sent me to a different dimension, and it was profound. Pajuta Wakan, the sacred medicines, the sage, the sweetgrass, the copal. Waluta, the prayer strings. Lodges exist because you gotta dispel psychic garbage. When I was doing drugs and alcohol, I wasn't on a spiritual track. I needed to find my own religion. Crawling into the womb of the great mother, Mother Earth, Maka Tonka Kia. I remember the songs of the old man, the gentle sound of the water hitting stones. Being in the lodge with a lot of strangers, you had to sit still and be present. It's hot in a lodge. It's dark in a lodge. It is intense. It's our medicine. The lodge changed my life and created such a sense of calmness, removed all the fears. Once I got sober, I had a connection to the spirit world. I didn't have to search anymore. And now I run lodges for others. Until you fix your spirit, you'll never be able to heal your body. Sweat Lodge found me, and I'm sharing it out. You don't need to understand it, but you're welcome to join me. We're all two-leggeds. All nations need the healings too.
For those that are not familiar with indigenous practice, if the song's being sung, it's polite to remove your headwear and stand up.
Wani wa cielo.
What I sang there was universe, we're here. Westwardly, we're heading. We're here on Mother Earth. And then I said, Pajuta Wakans, the sacred plant medicine, Pajuta Wakans, is, from my heart, is what we're talking about. Today we have that modern term called entheogens. And the topic, I'm sure you all know, but I got to reiterate it so I can remember it. Navigation from traditional indigenous spiritual practices to millennial experientialisms. So what is tradition? I know what its purpose is. Its purpose is for us to be seen, heard, and loved. That's the purpose of the tradition. That's the purpose of working with the entheogens. What happens is it opens up a doorway that allows us to heal, doctor, or create new thought patterns so that we can exist in the realm of a two-legged with more ease. Being an urban practitioner, I've dealt with this one a lot. What is tradition? Is it what we did last week? 10 years ago? 10 generations ago? What is tradition? I wrote this down. Sundance. Tell them about it. It's too many words to type. I'll just go for example because I'm familiar with the Sundance way of life. Does everyone understand what a Sundance ceremony is? Okay, Sundance ceremony is an 8-day ceremony. 4 days of purification. You crawl in the sweat lodge every morning and every sundown. And you do a lot of chores the first 4 days. Dig out houses, cover shade arbors, etc. And then on the 5th day, the 4th day, we go with prayer. We cut down a cottonwood tree and we carry it on our backs and we replanted it in the arbor in the circle. We decorate it with the lutas, the prayer ties, the prayer strings you saw in the video, and big robes of fabric. And it looks like Christmas, but with the 7 colors, the black, the red, the yellow, the white, the purple, the blue, and the green. And then we dance all day long with no food and water. For 4 days. For 4 days. And basically what we're doing is we're, through deprivation, opening up the pineal gland. Same thing like we do with the entheogens, we open up the pineal gland. First and foremost, my wife and I, we learned through deprivation to open the pineal gland prior to doing work with the medicines, which actually gives us an easier navigation place to come from. So, originally, the Sundance was the purification before, the cutting of the tree, the offering, the singing of the songs, feeding the tree, etc. And one would go and do the piercing immediately. And they would pull from the tree or hang from the tree of life until they broke and the ceremony was done. Sometimes that would just be a few hours. However, over the last 100 years or so, now it's become a 4-day ceremony. And basically because we probably need more work to get to that point. It's 4 days of deprivation. And usually the piercing doesn't start until the 2nd or 3rd day, sometimes the last day. And that's when, through the ropes, through the offering, and through the connection of the tree, Mother Earth, that we get that electrical charge to open up that pineal gland. So, it's changed. In the tradition in the Sundance has changed within the last 100 years. Things evolve. But my whole mission with this talk tonight is about maintaining as much of the tradition as possible, because the bottom line is the indigenous practices are what brought us up to this date. The songs, the ceremonies, the rituals, it's what brought us up to this date. And tradition now falls upon you, your generation. As you know, I went to the res for 30 summers in a row and learned to the best of my ability. They still say I mess up the songs. I was a fire tender. And I went there for decades. Others, like with the ayahuasca medicine, what I did was equivalent to like a 5-year dieta, that much time, in ceremonies. I've probably done over 4,000 sweat lodges in my day. Some would even look at that as more like a master's or a doctorate level of commitment. And I suggest if you're going to do this work, go to that level. Otherwise, we're looking at recreation. The downfall is that our social conditionings that bring us to the interest of the medicine actually has to kind of be all erased. That's where for us, having the deprivation approach, we got rid of all that social conditioning that the matrix brought us to that point. So, is anyone here thinking, wanting, desiring, having instincts, having vision about leading ceremony in this way? There's a lot of responsibility in that. And probably, on the res, I'm a liberal, but in the city, I'm a conservative. Go figure when it comes to the psychedelic. And again, it's through repetition that's going to teach you that, to break down all that conditions that we had. Don Miguel Luis wrote some great words in his book on Mastery of Love. It's a great starting spot. So, what does a healthy, spiritual, entheogen community or village look like? What does it look like? I don't know. I don't think anybody, because it's just evolving. Correct? What I don't want to do is I got to pray about that. I know I have to pray about that. I've only seen it happen in a few small, close-knit group. And that's how it was way back when, was we lived in a village. We had nowhere to go. We had to live with it. Bottom line with the close-knit groups is, I've underlined, trust has to be there. So how do you find community and trust? Especially this day in a disposable society that we exist in. How do you find trust? How do you trust it when we're conditioned to, oh, they're crazy, I'm out of here. Oh, I'm not going to sit through this, let's go. That happens. So that's the big ticket, is finding people and elders that you can trust, community. God bless you guys for doing this work, doing the integration circles, doing the men's talking circles, the sister shares, all the communities. That's how it begins. That's how it begins. We got to get away from allowing fight or flight to get us. We see this a lot in ceremony. Fight or flight is triggered in a sweat lodge. Supposed to. Supposed to. It's supposed to get you right on that edge. Psychedelics will get you right on that edge. But that's when you can do the work. And again, it's back to social conditioning. People aren't used to that. They get on that edge, oh, I better take my Prozac. Ooh, who's got the bomb? Right? So, that's what's got to be carried forward. You have to carry it forward. We have to carry it forward. With commitment. I may be reiterating myself, but finding that village with the trust and willingness to confront the process and stay with the process is what was originally passed to us hundreds of years ago. You had to stay in the village. You had to stay in the village. Worst thing, the only other option was you married off to another village or you were banished. We don't have that. And so how do we hold the accountability? And I'll talk to you about the accountability and the ceremony works when I get later on in the conversation about code of ethics. I like that word. Basically, what we'll achieve once we find that community is three things. The ability to forgive, love, and be of service to the village. That's our main purpose for being here. Even I didn't put the ET's name on, but I'm saying that. Even the Blue Aryans are saying, those are our three purposes: love, service, and forgiveness. So that's what I encourage you to be your goals. And again, I'm going to promote going back to traditional indigenous practices, whether it's from the jungles, from the Puwiti, from Peru, Costa Rica, Native American ceremonies. Go back into those ceremonies and go study in those realms. Because the reality is that's why entheogens are here. Is because the indigenous people brought them forward. They brought them forward. Well, we got a few exceptions. LSD. We got a few exceptions, but the majority of them are all kept and cared for by the indigenous population. Look at the generation as a whole that you're involved with. Look at it. Because again, I'm going to say it's your responsibility to be reverent with the plant medicines, to be reverent. We saw what happened in the 60s and the 70s, didn't we? It was some good stuff. It brought us here. It brought you into this room. Right? They got cannabis 30% legal now. Wow. That's minuscule of what can be done with entheogens. What can be accomplished with entheogens. I had young men that I've worked with get total scientific downloads, patentables. That's why the pyramids were built, most likely. It's because they were working with the medicines. That technology. I got this later on, but I got to say it now. Science needs to come to the shamanistic world, not the shamanistic world go to science and get validation. Who can? Who? They need to come sit with us not we go prove that we're there. What is wrong with anecdotal information? What is wrong? It's 5,000 years old. What's wrong with it? It's not proven in science. What's the acronym? KMA. I mean, I'm really grateful for science, and I'm going to go on that. And I'm really grateful that all these things have brought us here to this thing. The fact that we're having this discussion, the fact that these ladies have organized this group, the fact that they are having conferences, the fact that MAPS exists, facts that Zendo is out there. It's a beautiful thing. You know, I really honor that. It's scary that Zendo has to exist, though. It shouldn't have to exist. All the beautiful, I know Doc's here. It's beautiful that they're out there being in recognizance. What's the word, recognizance? You know, reacting instead of acting. If we were acting appropriately with entheogens in what was historically done through ceremonial context, there may not be a need for a Zendo. And I respect them. I'm so grateful that they're out there being in support of generation, but harm reduction shouldn't be our goal. It should be education. You know, and really learn the reverence of that plant medicines, what they can do. Also in that generation, the 60s and the 70s, one thing that also happened was the Religious Freedom Act, 1972. The indigenous people pulled that off. The natives pulled that off. So again, one more time, this comes from earthbound philosophies, whether they're Celtic or etc. I mean, Santa Claus. Santa Claus ate psychedelics. He gave them to his reindeer. You find that lineage, find that song. So, and thank God for the indigenous peoples that did fight, you know, to maintain the ceremonies. The peyote work that we do was illegal. It's not. It's not anymore. You know, as a member of a church or as a church leader, I can carry it in my pocket. I can carry whatever I want in my pocket. I can go wherever I want because I've got that freedom because of the indigenous people's fight to keep that going. So I encourage you to find a community that will support that freedom because it's so wonderful. Me as a two-legged, if I want to do ceremony, I don't have any fear. I mean, anyone familiar with the teepee ceremony and peyote teepee ceremony? What's the position you're sitting in? On your knees. The traditional for sitting in a teepee meeting is usually on one knee and the other one, or both knees. Do you know why that tradition is in place? Pardon? No, because they had to flee often enough.
So they could run.
So they could run. So they were on one knee, kneeling, and the other one up, and they always had a knife on their pocket so they could cut the teepee and run. Because the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, could cut it down. The reason they have the crossfire meeting, they put a Bible on the altar right next to the grandfather peyote button. And they would sing, Jesus, you're the only one, our Lord and Savior, you are not in your way, Jesus. So they would sing these songs and they converted the hymns. Similar to what the Daime did, so that they wouldn't get busted. So now, Native American Church and the teepee meetings is a tradition, and everyone thinks that, oh, that's the way it is. Well, the tradition was based on survival. So as you go, as students of entheogens, I encourage you to look at the practicality behind the tradition. Not question the tradition, but learn the practicality, to learn the dogma. Why is the dogma there? Once you understand the dogma, then you can flow through it, and it makes no never mind. You know, it just makes no never mind. We see it often. Ladies don't want to wear skirts in sweat lodge. Well, why do we have to wear skirts? Then you get to wear shorts. Well, actually, it's an advantage. I wish I could wear a skirt in there. So look for the practicality in everything, because that's where tradition is usually based out of. And so as traditions are unfolding in this day and age with the entheogens, look for the practicality in that, and then it makes it a lot easier, and it makes it a lot more sense. Got that page. So the fact is that this generation is waking up. The millennials and so on are waking up. Again, I pray that we can find a beauty and balance, that we're not in fear. I'm sorry to hear the intro with the fear-based reality. Good thing is, you're all blessed right now. You're in our church ceremony. Whatever you want goes okay. You're safe. I'm here. We don't have to exist in that realm, you know, because of the Religious Freedom Act. So there's that one. I reviewed about the programming, correct? How we came here with this programming and how we have to dissolve that. I don't need to reiterate that. The fact is that doing the psychedelics, one young man I was talking with beforehand, you know, I said, it's not an easy path. Doing ceremonies is not an easy path. And as Chief Crow Dog, my Sundancer chief, I was his fire tender for 26 years. He said, you want an easy way to pray? Go to an air-conditioned church and wear a coat and tie. It's a lot easier. Doing ceremonies, doing psychedelics, doing entheogens, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not something that should be taken lightly or abused. I don't know where that page went. But I feel I need to go into that phrase right now. I came here 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, to scout. Okay, what am I doing this at? Just like I would have smelled outside, I went and scouted. And a young man came up to me, just completely shattered. He said, I've done 90 sits in 2 years. I'm living in my car. I'm going to Boston, I close my business, and I'm going to go sleep on my friend's couch. He's not the first one that's come up to me in the 5 years that we've gone public doing this work. Another one, 70 sits, living in his truck, closed his workshop, his beautiful woodworker. His half-side fled the country with his baby. Total mess. There are consequences for overuse. There are consequences for overuse and not done in a safe container. There are. I see practitioners that in their integration circle, they say, well, I've sat 60 times, I've sat 70 times. It's too much. It's way too much. Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a facilitator, right? Go to the jungle and go for 5 years, 10 years. But you don't need to be doing that much medicine in an urban environment. You don't need to. We, with our work with the Peyot, we do maybe 6, 7 ceremonies a year. If, you know. But then again, I've had one month where we did 4 because it was a cancer patient. It was somebody who just got discharged from the military, was totally in shock, etc., like that. And yes, we did do those ceremonies for those individuals one-on-one. But as a general whole, as a church community, we only offer it a few times a year because anything more than that, it's not needed. It's just not needed. Oh, back to fire jumping. There's another hidden subtitle. It goes back to the flight or flight. We call people who jump from ceremony to ceremony. Oh, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go over there. We call them fire jumpers. And that's basically somebody that doesn't stay in one community. Doesn't, you know. I stayed at that Sundance for the 26 years. I didn't like some of them chiefs. I really didn't like them. Some of them were 8, 10 years my junior, and they got bonnets because they were full bloods. Right? And I was mixed breed on the res, on a whole native only Sundance. We had confrontation over and over and over again. But because my elder told me, stay at Big Mountain. Stay there. You're the fire chief, stay there. Don't leave no matter what. Those difficulties worked their way out. Some of it was my shit too. Worked their ways out. So, if you're building community, go in there. The elder's going to call you on your stuff. The elder is going to call you on your work. And if you run away from it, that's your loss. That is your loss. You know, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to address it. Hey, you got this. Now keep this up. Check in with me in the morning. Every Monday morning. You know, till we can make sure we're good. I dictated a lot of notes into my iPhone. I tell you. Yeah, those problems were resolved with the chiefs, and needless to say, at the end of the day, at staying at one ceremonial place, the one camp, I ended up bleeding, crying, crawling, and laughing my way to healing and happiness and joy and gratitude. That's the end. Even though it may want to jump out. And I'll tell you, there was many times, it took me usually 2 days to get to the Sundance ceremony. And I was driving, what the hell am I doing? Why am I going there? They treat me like shit. What am I doing? And usually around the second day, that's why I went. You know, that's why I went. So. And that, at the end of the day, I found the freedom of being a human being. By the cry, by the tears, by the laughter, by crawling in the mud, by having a tree fall on me, by having all those things, having all the confrontations, learning to work with, you know, human beings is how I found the freedom. So, we're utilizing bits of shamanic tools today, correct? In our ceremony. We need chunks. We don't need just the medicine. We need chunks of it. We need big bodies of shamanic tools, songs, posturing, positioning, you know, the way we sit in a ceremony. You know that we kneel in the teepee. We do the pale work in the sweat lodge. We sit down. basically because this generation no longer has to fear the way it did the generation before. So we do it sitting down. Now more than ever, we need to transition with use of these tools and invigorate our understanding of the old teachings in all directions, as I say, and include the downloads that we receive from the Akashic records or through the ceremonies, through the medicine. We got to include those. We call them visions in ceremony. If you come off the hill and you get a vision, no one will dispute it. It was a vision I received. Okay, make it so. That's the way you want to do your prayer ties. That's the way you want to set your altar. That's the vision you see. Go for it. That's how things came to people, was through vision. The songs that we sang tonight, most of them somebody came off the hill, and they brought that song down from them. So, one thing I want to be aware is that I don't know if do I need to say this? About getting high. You know, in the indigenous community, that wasn't an issue. People just didn't get high. It was that time of year to do the ceremony, or the young man turned 15, they did the ceremony. The Witties would do it as a rite of passage, the ibogaine. It was that season. So what we're doing, what we got going on right now is we can go on the interweb, or we get this email about so-and-so doing this ceremony, or this going on over there. What I want to invoke in you all is, that's beautiful that there's people out there practicing the work. But first and foremost, as participants with entheogens, first it's that you need to look for not what kind of substance you're going to do, but where is my community? Where is my infrastructure? So that when I'm ready to do psychedelics, there's a supporting structure. That first and foremost. I was a clinical director at an ibogaine clinic for a quick breath of a moment of a fall season a couple of years ago. Exhausting. The young people would come out of the iboga process, and in that culture, there's like, oh, I want to do frog, oh, I want to do toad, oh, I want to do ayahuasca, oh, I want to do, and I said, son, it's a better thing. What you really need is find a community, find a mentor, find an elder. Let them say, niece, nephew, it's time. You're ready. Go on the hill. Come sit with us, do this medicine. Not, ooh, what is my social calendar? Where's my iPhone? Hold up. It's not that. It's not that. I'm going to jump to the practitioner. In the old days, in the traditions, the village cared for the shaman, if we're going to use that word, or the ceremonialist. The village cared for him. So he could care for the people. Nowadays, it's more like people accept donations, charge for ceremonies. So basically, you as participants of ceremonies pay for the attention of the practitioner. When really, it's the patients that should pay attention to the practitioner to make sure they're good, because they're watching over you. But that's only going to happen when community is established. You know, in many other religions and indigenous practices, the shaman, the holy man, the medicine person on the exterior looked like to be the most, with the most material wealth. Because if he or she had the more material wealth, they weren't busy dealing with that realm of survival. So the community took care of the practitioner, and they saw the wood pile, or they saw the teepee was torn, or they saw their hut was falling down. The community would fix that. When the hunters came back, the first thing they went was to the elder and gave them the best, cut of the meat. But it's sad to say, again, today, we pay the practitioner to pay attention to the patient. And that's why we're still, even as a new church, trying to figure out ways to make that work. My wife and I, we wanted to go public and start going out there on the interweb about doing peyote ceremonies. People be knocking at the door all the time. All the time. But we don't. We save it for the cancer patient, the veteran with the scars, the lost limb. I've even had quadriplegic crawl. We drag them into the lodge. But when it's done that way, or when there's a major rite of passage, or a wedding, prior to a wedding, things of substance, is what's done in the old school. Not as much adventuring as it is today. So, another thing that's on my prayer list. I do 405 prayer ties every summer, my wife and I, every summer on the tree, and those are the things that go into our prayers. How do people find that? How do people form community in an urban environment? It's not an easy equation. It's not an easy equation, and I'm so grateful for all the things that are popping up, the integration circles, Brothers United, and Hank's work that he's providing as part of our community. I love doing the talking circles. It's one time I get to just sit there and listen. I have to facilitate. Beautiful work he's been doing. You saw the word in the title, experientialism. I made up that word. I made it up. Because the possibility with psychedelics isms could occur. It's a disease. If somebody is doing that, like that 90 sits or the 70 sits and ended up homeless, that's a disease in my book. And the shame is both of those young men that in the recent past that I've come across, the only place they could get more integration was if they went back to that community and ate more psychedelics or drank more psychedelics, which then spiraled down to the homelessness situation. And what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? Educate. So, that said, find your ritual, find your fireplace, find your altar, keep with it. When you want to tend fire, tend fire. You can learn so much through so many components. If you're being a guardian at ceremonies, be a guardian. If you're going to be a fire tender, be a fire tender. Be a singer, learn the songs. All these traditions were kept through songs. Learn the songs. Learn the songs. There's a point where you'll learn the words, you'll learn the melodies, you'll learn the meanings of the words, but then you learn them in here. And then you become the songs. And you become the songs. And that's where you got to go. It's the same thing with learning the fire. You become the fire. There's 4 sacred fires, There's 4 sacred fires. The sun, the earth, the ceremony, and the one with you. So if you're one with all the fires, you can pick up the coals, the hot coals, and hold them. Does that make sense? And that's where the holy men will take those hot coals and they put them in their mouth. And will doctor them, because they'll have the energy of all four sacred fires. So learn those skills. Chop the firewood. Understand the energy that's coming from the sun going to the trees. And we chop it down, and then we take that energy and we put it into the fireplace. And understand that energy on a molecular level. You will see that with psychedelics, the energy exchange. But understand it and be it. I was going to go over our code of ethics, but I don't think I will. What I will advise you is ask your practitioners, what is your code of ethics as a participant? Ask them. I've heard words of individuals talking about consent. Violation of consent is rampant in ceremony community. Question, in a good way, those that are serving the medicine. Make sure that there is a standard of ethics. Those are the terms we use nowadays. In the old days, there was another term, good man, but that there is ethics in with whom you're all sitting with. Make sure that everyone is agreed on those ethics. For example, when we run ceremony, personally, we're responsible for that person the hour they arrive, first hour they arrive, all the way up till 4 hours after their ceremony. When we do medicine work, I'm checking on them 24 hours afterwards as well. Actually, doing medicine work with somebody, checking on them the rest of their life. Does that make sense? So, really, if you're going to sit with somebody with medicine, that's how deep your commitment is to that facilitator. The facilitator should, watch out for the shaman shopping that happens. There's a lot of it. And there's shamans that'll be soliciting ceremonies in order for their sustainability economically. I know it's a tough one. It's a tough one to find balance in that, because we love sitting in ceremony, and we get donations at the ceremony, and it helps support the home and the family and all that. But it's hard. Find your practitioners, find your community, and support them by supporting yourself in both ways. So that's all I got to say about the ethics. I got them on the website if you want. But I encourage you to look at it. We are members of Oklahoma Native American Church. They have it published. We actually don't have a website. We're kind of underground that way. Just word of mouth again, because the fear-based reality that we exist in, even though legally we can do any kind of medicine work we want to, Oklahoma Native American Church surrounds itself around the peyote first and foremost, the ayahuasca, the cannabis, and etc. So I encourage you to look into that in the future. So let me summarize this up. Ed came over and reviewed my notes with me. And in bold font, I wrote, "Be the prayer." That's my summary. That's the goal with this work, is leading ourselves to being the prayer, no matter what. So that includes learning to do the prayer, learning to do the meditation, whether it's breath work, Falun Gong, Qigong, etc., that leads you to that state of being. We get glimpses of that state of being with psychedelics. Yeah? We get it. But how do we keep it together? How do we stay in that state of mind? It's not easy. I have 3 daughters. Being a father and a bride and a groom and having a business, having an enterprise. Having go through the 805 and the 5 interchange at 6 o'clock. Try being a prayer. Right? In the old days, they had it a heck of a lot easier than today. They had it a lot easier. It is really difficult to live in both realms. To have a boot in one foot and a moccasin on the other is not an easy thing to do. And there's a lot of you that are inspiring to go do that work through the Entheogens. Be cautious. Take your time. You know, the ceremony, it's not just a experience. It's a way of life. So as you further go into the studies and through the practices, keep that in your mind. You know, that it is a way of life. Thank you for letting me share. Questions, and then we got to sing a closing song. I want to sing that Melissa Etheridge song. Somebody bring me a drink of water. Do we have any questions? Thank you. My oldest daughter, Sasha. Any questions? Yeah.
What makes all these ceremonies and rituals so powerful?
My wife always can answer this one. The Lord's Prayer.
It's the energy behind the ceremony with all the people that have done it for all the years that it's been done in a certain way. The energy resonates behind all those people and doing a ritual and ceremony the same way and singing the same songs, putting the things in the same direction. So all that energy is up behind it and behind you and has your back, and the power and the energy is coming through not only from your intention, the medicine, but the people behind that have been carrying it. Does that make sense?
Good question. Good question. Yes.
Does your church meet weekly? Not necessarily ceremony, but just as a weekly?
We have something going on most every week. My wife facilitates a sister share, which is a talking circle. We host Brothers United on the other Tuesdays. That's every Tuesday. Every other's, this week was women's, next week's men's. So we have that integration work. We do Community Sweat Lodge the first Saturday of every month. We do Men's Sweat Lodge the third Friday or Saturday of every month. The Ladies Sweat Lodge is one. Enough of them pester my wife to call for one. And we do the medicine work seasonally.
So, is there a website with that information, or
We have cards. We don't have a website, but we have an email list that we're really working on.
you for that information, you will get
Yes.
Yeah, you got to be very, see, like the ayahuasqueros, they would say, if you want to do ayahuasca and it's appropriate person, you'll have to ask them 3-4 times. That's kind of tradition. So there's these over there, and on the bottom has the email address. And if you don't see something, you better send another one, son.
We're not very technological.
We're not really tech savvy. We're good with the drums. So yeah, we have a winter social this weekend. And you can hit my wife up for the flyer on that. But we stay underground for the most part. It's just recently coming and doing this talk is like a big coming out for us. We don't usually, I mean, I stayed in ceremonies, went to work, ceremonies, went to work, and never went public up in just the recent past. And it's a whole new arena. It's a whole new arena. But good question, thanks. Also, when you meet a Sarah person, bring tobacco. That's polite.
I went to one of your sweats actually a few years back.
Good.
Oh, Sue. See, we remember you all. When you guys come, we remember. When you sit in ceremony together, you're, you know, I'm so, yeah.
Good one.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then if you do put get on the email, you better save our contact into your contacts, otherwise it goes into spam. Because there's 500 people we send it out to.
Yeah.
Just look for the TP on the front line, T-Town.
What was the impetus behind coming out and bringing this in a more public arena?
Good question. Good question. The question was, what was the inertia behind coming out? Well, this topic and safety, and actually people fire jumping, people, you know, doing the work and not sticking around, and people doing psychedelics without control or containers, appropriate containers. That's something I meant to say. You know, in the psychedelic community, they talk about set and setting. In my opinion, set and setting isn't Thursday at 7 p.m. at this place upon a hill. Set and setting is the community, the year-round environment is set and setting. And so that is one of the reasons I wanted to get out and say that specifically, is that it's not just set and setting, it's lifestyle, it's being the prayer. Good question.
Hi. I'm trying to fixate on the story of the young man who sat too much.
Yeah.
As somebody in recovery and to somebody who is sits too much in his own things, how do you make the distinction in your own life between habit and issue?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Habit is 10 days go by and you don't have any psychedelics, that's habit. 2 years go by and you're at an impasse and you go sit in ceremony, that's a different story. Does that make sense? And then sit one-on-one with somebody you can trust and really go over it. Well, why am I needing to do it every 10 days? What is the reason? Why am I not feeling good enough in the skin of this body that I feel drawn to have to do it every 10 days? Does that make sense? So I can't give you a flatline answer on that. It's a variable. Does that make sense? Okay. This way.
Maybe asking yourself the next time you find yourself planning another set and looking into your heart why it is that you're feeling called to go again. Do you feel that you need some more healing? Or do you feel that you want that what my husband was talking about, that communion, you know, that community, that village? You know, is that what you could be looking for, or is it that you know, wanting the healing? Or I think it's the connection, because in ceremony, our connection is so strong. And when we're not in ceremony, we may not see it as much, but in ceremony, when those doors are open, we can see that we are really all connected and that we're all one. And I think that's what we're looking for anyway, is we're really looking for validation to know that we're one and to feel the connectedness. So That's why we're talking about, community sweats or just circles or just, even lunches, connecting with people on Facebook. It's such a false connection. Such a, false connection. You have so many friends. How many friends do you really have? How many friends come over? So we might be looking for that not only for healing, for the entheogens and the psychedelics and what a healing it is. And for those doors to open. And looking for those doors to open through meditation and maybe deprivation, depending on the safe environment and the tradition that feels good to your calling. But maybe look at it, what is it that you're going for? Like when you think, oh, there's a ceremony. Oh, I want to go. What is that first thought after that? What am I looking for? A healing, a connection, that feel good. So maybe that would be a good way to decipher.
As I started the speech was, traditions and ceremonies are there so we're seen, heard, and loved. So if that's your motive to go do the psychedelics, well, no, really psychedelics are for discovery, and advancement. We need to fill those needs in other places. Good question. One more question. Yes, Drew.
Has there been a time where you've turned somebody away and you didn't feel that they were ready to sit with the medicine, or that they weren't emotionally ready, or?
Yep. I've sent people away with medicine that I wouldn't do the ceremony with medicine for. And I've sent people away from the sweat lodge, regrettably. And that's not done that much on the res, but I've had to do it more in the city because the culture clashes. That, no, you're not ready. Yes.
So do you counsel with each person prior to them?
In a perfect world, when I'm working with somebody in a community environment, I like doing one-on-ones for people for a month to 3 months, meet with that individual weekly, see him at the talking circles, see him at the sweat lodges, and then build enough of that relationship. And that, okay, I'll see you at the sweat next Saturday. So I don't have to do all that one-on-one work. But yes, I do one-on-one work, and that's very important. Now we call them sessions. But the old days is you went and sat next to the old man by the fireplace all night long. Now we have to book appointments and book sessions because of the environment that we live in. Good question. We gotta go. All right. Closing song. By the way, we just completed this project. You can ask me about it.
Which one?
Oh, we're good.
Creator, show our visions you have for us. Oh, John.